Merriam-Webster defined ethics as basically a branch of philosophy which is used to resolve questions of human morality by defining what is right and wrong with moral duty and obligation.
The impact of ethical issues on architecture is manifest and involves whether the architect's architectural design should have a positive value and impact on society, the economy, the public, and the natural environment, as well as covering the architect's code of conduct towards clients, colleagues, and the public in the workplace.
In my understanding, architecture is a multidisciplinary subject, which always needs architects to do various research and cooperate with professionals from other fields. Architects must be able to distinguish between ethical and non-ethical issues, in compliance with the various codes and regulations. Setting their own ethical principles is also important to help them make better decisions. As architectural students, we also should have abilities to identify these ethical issues and try to give the best solutions to establish the foundations of being a professional architect in the future.
Yes, our architectural ethics manifesto is our own ethical principles and the code of regulation based on our personal architectural ethical standards, architects' obligation in the society, and the concept of cooperation, which is closely related to our personal storylines, including our personal beliefs, culture, upbringing, and experiments as a female overseas architecture student.
Our ethical manifesto for architecture practice and cooperation is highly related from the similarities in our personal narratives, the Chinese cultural background, and as an architecture overseas student. The manifesto is a projection of our values, which cultural background and experience that determine our view of nature, society, responsibility, and human interaction.
China, as a distinctive socialist country, also makes our perception different from the liberalism in Australia. It makes us be very dedicated to our country, and we often put the community interest as our priority instead of individual. Personally, I grew up in Beijing. Serious environmental problems caused by the industrialization development makes me value even more the harmonious coexistence of sustainable development between people and nature.
As a group of overseas students, we are also exposed to Western culture and are more open and accepting of difference between people. Study abroad also provides us an experience of joining the community as a newcomer and as a racial minority, which make us more empathetic to vulnerable groups and focus on creating a welcoming and inclusive community. As a conclusion of architectural ethics, which as Sasha Cole said is the purpose and value of driving us to do the practice, our slogan is respect the present, promote the future.
We are dedicated to build a harmonious interaction between people and land by becoming a good listener to get a deep understanding of the existing city and no fear of challenge to give the best solution for the sustainable future.
There are 4 main principles for our practice. Always put people first. Respect the country beyond clients. Consist on nature and architecture coexist in harmony and building trust. Diversity and figure out how the building contribute to these layers of experience. This includes respect the diversity of people, listen to understand what they want, and focus on the interactions between people with nature, and people with space.
People are diverse, and we should to respect them, which is the first sign is to getting familiar with different groups of genders, culture, and society in particular community. 2. Personal thinking of architects during the process of getting to understand the people might cause a bias and judgment on a certain group of people.
We also should always be inclusive with accepting new possibilities for the community. The foreign population and newborns are equally important in the diversity of the population and open new possibilities for the community. Refer to Kunis Young's experience as a native for certain community. She's still unconfident to have the complete understanding of the community.
Yes, the diversity of the population does not only refer to the population that already exists, but people are also flexible and mobile. Like our manifestos, we want to trigger from the diversity of the existing population, but be sensitive to the possibility of the future.
When there are multiple cultures in a community, there will inevitably be friction and collision, and we should pay attention to focus on people's interaction with culture, people, and nature, and ensure their sense of belonging and happiness in their community.
However, spending too much time on learn every culture and language is considered not much efficient and impossible for us. Communication might be one of the quickest way to listen what the groups truly want. Similar to Young and Co's principles, we don't design for every people, but we are thinking the diversity as a whole, integrating the city and encourage the community to express in their own way.
Before establishing the project plans, cultural awareness always prioritized. In Australia, we will interpret this principle into the connection with the country, culture, and value. Country has a specific and significant meaning for Aboriginal peoples, which relates to the nation or cultural group and land that we belong to, therefore, find healing from and will return to. And culture defines us and makes us who we are. Cultural identity and a sense of belonging to country and community is strongly linked to health and emotional well-being. Thus, when starting to design, it's important to have cultural awareness and gain an understanding of country.
We also think that architecture can serve as a medium to inherit local cultural characteristics. We can take various actions to make connection with the local culture, residents, and environment, such as using the local materials, working with local neighbors, transforming traditional craft to the architecture, and making the fusion of vernacular with Western engineering.
As Vanuatu's good design by Kuna's Young Architecture shows, the use of local materials and the traditional skills like the hand-woven anti-guru roof and bamboo window effectively make a connection with the country.
As Sashako said, a community means a sense of belonging for a group of people who having certain characteristics in common. We dedicated to improving belonging for indigenous people, especially which are comfortable for them and constantly going.
Yes, architecture that satisfies the collective and the human being truly trends to bring more social value and increase people's happiness than architecture that only brings commercial value with the customer as priority.
The environment and nature have an important and profound impact on people and society. Natalia Ten has mentioned that as a sustainable designer, we seek a better environment, and engineer architecture provides the foundation for that. Our ethical philosophy is based on the idea that the human being is fundamental to architecture, and that the harmonious coexistence of architecture and nature is a goal we have long pursued. The emphasis on the interaction between people and nature, which refer to Atelier 10, is one way to achieve both ethical statements and increasing the proportion of nature in a city will not only increase the happiness of the people in that community, but it's also one way to increase the value placed on nature.
I feel like that our attitude is probably closely linked to the environmental issue in our mother country previously. In China, we found there are more and more architectural firms are focusing on the sustainability of architecture and environment. For example, vector architecture believes the architecture cannot exist apart from its site. We also agree with this idea, which a good design should adapt to the local environment through combining the geographical features, including climate and topography.
Minimize the negative impact on the natural environment is principle that we consist of to achieve at least 100% less bad design on sustainable architecture. During Caroline Piddock's pursuit of sustainable architecture in her career path story, she proposed that human society is a part of larger ecosystem, and even though we can't do everything for the environment, but we can do something. 100% less bad sustainable design is the least something that we can stick in our principle.
Finally, the harmony between architecture and nature need to be future-oriented. We dedicate to regenerative design which good for the future society and environment in the long-term development. It ideally is culturally and physically inclusive and welcoming, resilient to shocks and stresses, affordable and equitable for people, in low carbon emission, and preserve the biodiversity. Building trust is our concept of cooperation as a profession, not only with colleagues, but also clients and people in the community from the project site. Establishing a good relationship of trust between people can lead to a better teamwork atmosphere, higher efficiency, and ensure a healthier and more positive mental health through our communications.
We believe that trust is built on the understanding of people. Daniel Boyd and NBC both support this by suggesting spending some time to get familiar with each other and understand what they are.
So, how should we get to know each other?
Being a good listener in communications, like how we be respectful to the diversity of community, is the best way. We also benefit from listening that the different points of view can push various outcomes and get a diverse representation of a society. Collaboration is also encouraged that we can and have ability to become a problem solver to resolve the conflicts between the people and get an outcome agreed to by others.
Trust is usually easier to maintain and build in a fair, open, and respectful environment. We advocate a positive workplace environment by respecting and welcoming people with different backgrounds, having a flat hierarchy construction to make people comfortable to express, and pay attention to gender equity and encourage women to show their talents and working abilities. Victoria Beach demonstrates that the ethical value system has three parts: pro, jo, and schemo. The architect's rules and regulation AACA and AIA contains all three of these levels of ethical values, as well as covering the duty of clients, colleagues, nature, architecture itself, and societies.
It obtains that architects should provide all relevant information which the clients have rights to know to optimize the interests of the clients and should meet the requirement in AACA to have skills, knowledge, and capabilities to do the general practice of architecture in Australia. And I find that this is obligations to client or architecture or related to the quality of the service we provide as architects. The contribution to society seems to be of little relevance to the career of a normal architect. Collaboration and the American Institute of Architects are also emphasizing the obligation of architects as professionals to provide community service, which means to providing pro bono service for public interest, including to those who cannot afford that.
Yes, we can see that the importance and weight of architects' public service shown in the document is completely inconsistent with the reality of architects' participation in the public service. Perhaps this is because the line is blurred as to whether as an architect's service to public is a public good or an obligation. According to Akuma's practice description, architects is expected to serve and promote the public interest rather than obligation.
In my personal perspective, in case of emergencies such as bushfires, floods, economic crisis, or other unexpected situations, the architect is obligated to help the community to reconstruct immediately. Some less urgent long-term public service for the disadvantaged can be pro bono help according to the architect's situation. Just as Brigham said, the amount of pro bono is an individual thing and personal choice which reflect on architect's value. I think it's the duty of a citizen of a country to stand up for the country in critical times.
Our values and personal experiments or political reasons also determine which type of vulnerable groups are prioritized for the pro bono services, if given choices are available. Whether these reasons will lead to the sum of groups of community need to waiting for the support services and the equity between groups in support is also one of the factors we need to consider.
Yes, maybe some delineation of community service types and refinement of the system may optimize this situation.
Because the pro bono services is unpaid, it is a financial challenge for the architect's income and commercial challenge of running the practice. As AA presented, the pay level of architects and the intensity of their work are not equal, resulting in a lack of time and lack of professional happiness, which further affect their spirit does not support them to do more work.
Yeah, this made me start to agree with Brickhand's questioning of the business model of architecture.
Or we can try to follow the 1% solution, which encouraged by the US to promote pro bono services by contributing 1% of our work time each week, which means 40 hours per year to get more architects on board.
But 40 hours is too little for an architect to complete a project.
The 1% solution that comes with more of the concept that architects may also do pro bono services on a 10-year or 5-year cycle, but they at least complete a full pro bono project by that deadline.
Well, promoting architects' participation in the public interest is not only a matter for architects alone, but also requires the encouragement of the government and the guidance of architectural schools in terms of architectural ethics and other diversified efforts.
Definitely.
To sum up, our personal experience and the expertise we have learned as architecture students are highly influencing our ethical principle of architecture.
Yes, it's also a reflection of our values. Similar to how social codes uphold his values, we have four qualities about how we express our values through architectural practice, which is the four Ins: inclusive, integrative, innovation, and initiative. They explain how we need to light up our manifestos, which we talked previously, and the good qualities we think we need to have from our personal storylines.
Yes, it's like the character we need to have inside the ethical series.